All right, everybody. It's time for our first guest. Now, he wrote this great book. It's called The Morphine Dream. Please welcome to the show, Donald Loring Brown. Welcome to the show, Donald. Now, before we get into your story, I do want to go over it. I wanted to ask you this. You wrote the book. It's called The Morphine Dream. And I wanted to ask you, why did you write the book? What were you looking for here?
I was looking for getting people motivated about being able to achieve dreams, because I did, and I believe it's a simple process if people would just learn to dream. That's what life's about, dreaming.
How about that, everybody? Yeah. Now, let me get into your story here. It's a serious one. When you were a young boy, your dad was bipolar, and he committed suicide.
Yes.
And this left you at a point where you didn't feel that education was the most important thing. It was more important for your family to come up with the money to pay for bills. And I remember one point in the story, your mom actually came home one day and she said, "Pack your things, we're leaving tonight." And you and your family had to pack all your stuff and you had to go. It actually led to you doing a lot of physical things for work. In fact, you were a semi-pro ball player. You played football, and you ended up working in this factory. But unfortunately, one day, someone at the factory was joking around with a forklift, and you fell and hurt your knee. And at this point, it was a bad moment for you because you had some knee issues there, and you ended up in a wheelchair. You became very depressed at this point in your life, and you eventually had to have surgeries. And it led to this point where you discuss what is called the morphine dream. So please, let's tell the audience, what is this morphine dream and what happened?
Well, I woke up after surgery and they had put me on morphine, and I didn't want drugs, but I was on them, and I was flying high. And I was listening to a motivational speaker, and he said, "Pull out a pad and write where you want to be in 5 years." And I wrote Harvard Law School. He said, "Now write what you have to do." And I wrote, get a GED, go to community college, and kick ass. And then he said, "Now turn the page and write what your 10-year goal." And I wrote Walking USA. And, of course, it was strange because I never finished junior high school, and I couldn't walk anymore. And it was strange dreams. The doctor came in the next morning and said, "How you doing?" I said, "Fine, I'm going to walk across the country and I'm going to Harvard Law School." And he said to the nurse, "I don't know what the hell you're giving him, but don't give him any more."
What's interesting here is that you at the time, you didn't have a junior high graduation or a high school graduation. You didn't know what a GED was.
No.
So how do you think you got to the point of writing that down along with Harvard Law School and walking across the United States?
It's come from somewhere. I mean, it was not in things in my mind. And I wrote them down, and I didn't know what a GED was, and I wrote it down. But, you know, at some point later I found out, and I got one. And I went to community college, and I went from there to Amherst College and Harvard Law School, and it was just a bunch of blessings falling in place.
And when you were going to school, you were having problems with your knees. You were in a wheelchair, you were in crutches during this whole time.
Yes.
How did you feel as a student getting around like that? Because I know it was probably intimidating for you. You were older and you had these issues.
Well, it was frustrating because I, didn't want to be hampered by not being able to walk. But I was getting an education, and I had said to myself early on in the process, as long as I get an education, I'll be all right. Because I knew I had to get an education. Otherwise, I couldn't do anything because I couldn't walk.
Interestingly enough, when you decided you wanted to go to Amherst College, you learned later from the admissions group that there was a woman there who spoke up for you because the rest of the committee didn't want you going to school. And when you found out about it, it meant a lot to you. Let's talk about her.
Well, her name was Amy Johnson. She was the dean of transfer admissions, and nobody else voted for me to be accepted, and she voted for me, and she said I staked my professional reputation on this man's ability to do Amherst College. And the dean of admissions said to her, "Well, you are staking your reputation on him. You can take him, but we're not going to vote for him. That means it's yours. It's your problem." So when I found that out, it it motivated me a lot to do really well because I didn't want to let her down. And I have since created a scholarship at Amherst College for transfer students that's called the Amy Johnson Scholars, people that go there.
It's a great story, and I'm so glad you found out that she was in your corner, because sometimes people fight first and we never even know it. So that's fantastic. When you went to Harvard now, you brought up this name, Derek Bell.
Yes.
He was your decision to go there.
Yes.
And what did he mean to you when you got there?
Well, he was, as I said in a book I just finished writing about him, he was the kindest, most compassionate human being I've ever met in my life. And he's responsible for mentoring a lot of very special people who have gone out to fight racial issues, including our governor, including the president and his wife, including Charles Ogletree, David Wilkins, and many, many others. And that's who he was. He was about mentoring people to help them learn how to fight racism in America.
It's fantastic. When you finished Harvard Law School, you began to practice in Dorchester, and what did you end up doing?
Well, I represented thousands of minority homeowners who had their houses stolen from them by banks in Boston. And I sued all the banks, and people said, "Oh my goodness, aren't you afraid all these big-time law firms are going to beat you up?" I said, "No, they wear pants the same way I do," you know. And I won, and they lost.
It's great to see this. Now, I didn't actually mention, when you started school, you were, how old was it, 30?
38.
38. So you were starting, and I remember when you had graduated from Amherst College, they made an announcement during graduation that you were the oldest graduate ever at the institution.
Yes.
And that meant a lot to you.
Yeah, well, it meant a lot to me because they allowed me to come there and do that at my age. They typically don't have people that were 41 years old graduating from Amherst College. But it was a special thrill to be able to go there with, you know, young, bright people from all over the country, from all over the world.
It's great that Amy believed in you, because when you left there, obviously the Harvard Law degree and then you working at the practice. But now, okay, you reached half of this morphine dream. The other half, walking across the United States of America. So 1997, you've planned this out. You are now, after many surgeries, walking, and you've decided you're going to walk across America. Yeah. What did you do? And I also want to mention that you raised money for charities as well. That's pretty amazing. How about this?
Well, I planned to walk a zigzag course, 5,000 miles out to Big Sur. That was my goal. And I trained for 3 or 4 months, walking 40 miles a day. And then I left here on July 4th from the Esplanade and walked 40 miles a day for 121 days, 5,000 miles, 2,000 cities and towns, 11 million steps. And I saw this country in a way that can't be beat. You just can't see it any other way. And you know, a lot of people think about our country's going downhill, but it's not. It's a beautiful place.
Along the walk, certain things happened. I know you met a lot of people, and the stories are in the book. Can you share one of the stories with us now?
Yeah, there was a little boy about 8 or 9 years old whose father drove up to me and said, "Could my son walk with you?" And I said, "Sure." So this little boy got out of the car and he started walking with me. And he was asking questions as good as you, a television reporter. And I thought it was pretty special that this 9-year-old kid could ask these kind of questions. And then when we got to his house and he was going to drop off as I continued on, he said, he looked up to me and he said, "Do you know I will cherish this for the rest of my life?" And I started crying, because then I said back to him, "I will too."
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it was so amazing that a little kid could think that way.
I want to mention one last thing, and that's when you were in California and you put your feet in the water. This is the end of the journey. What came to your mind?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was I did it. You know, I did these crazy dreams that everybody thought were crazy. And then the second thing was I got depressed and suicidal, and I was hoping the waves would take me to Japan. You know, because I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I sat there for quite a while struggling, and then all of a sudden I realized that life is about dreams. All we got to do is keep dreaming, all of us. And if we dream and make a plan and execute the plan, you'll get to your dreams, whatever they are.
Well, Donald, it's really been an honor to have you here. I want to mention again, the book is called The Morphine Dream. You can find it online. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Loring Brown. Thank you, sir. Fantastic story. All right, we'll be right back right after this.